Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
1, 2. Check me out right here, yo.
Yo, the sun don't shine forever, but it's long.
Thank you for joining me for another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. If you'd like to call in, the call-in number will be 585-633-7487. Right here in hour number 1 by the one, the only, G. Stelio Estevez of NGSCSports.com. G, how you doing tonight?
I'm all right, Bob. I'm all right, man. I took a break from watching football, and I'm looking at our solar system right now, trying to take in this blood moon that's happening right now.
Yeah, the blood moon, probably a better call than what happened in the NFL today. A lot of blowouts, a lot of disinteresting games. It was an awful day of football. Am I wrong on that?
Any time for me that the Bears lose, it's an awful day of football, so I just pretty much don't like football anymore.
It's got, watching Jimmy Clausen try to perform a simple task like winning a football game or scoring points is always tough. And I'm glad I wish I would have bet on the Seahawks today. I was considering betting on the Seahawks and the Patriots to both cover because they had like 13 and 14 point spreads, and I thought it would be a lock for both of them. Didn't take either. Really wish I would have taken both.
Listen, I'm a Bears fan. Even I bet against the Bears today because I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna get mad, at least I'll get $50 out of this. So I was like, whatever, man.
With some of these games, looking at the way people started creaming all over Mariota and then crapping all over Jameis Winston. Do you think it's just going to be a week-to-week thing with these two? Should we even care at this point? We should care about how they do this year, but I don't. I feel like everybody gets too high or too low on quarterbacks week in, week out. Even more so now than in the last couple of years.
I mean, when it comes to Mariota and Winston, I've said from day one, I was a Winston guy. I was never a fan of Mariota at all. And I actually took Cleveland in my survivor pool week 2 because I knew Cleveland would beat Tennessee because everybody was going to be slobbering, as you said, over Mariota. It's a week-to-week league, as we know, but I still think long-term Winston's going to have the better career, and he's just going to be the better player than Mariota. I just don't think Mariota's going to be that good at all. I didn't like him in Oregon. I mean, he was pretty much the best quarterback of all time in college when he played at Oregon. I just think long-term that Winston has more of the tools that I would want as a head coach or whatever, to go long-term than Mariota.
Well, Mariota, I feel like Winston has a little bit of Roethlisberger in him. He can make, he's going to give you an extra 5 or 6 plays a game. He's going to have some off-the-field issues that he might need to settle down in the next couple of years. But Mariota, I feel like, that up-tempo really helped him at Oregon. I just don't see him being, especially in Tennessee, I just don't see him being, he's going to have a high completion percentage, but I just don't see him being able to, the way his style translating into wins all the time.
Yeah, especially now if you hang out in Tennessee for too long. But you won't be winning too many games if you hang out in Tennessee.
Yeah, Tennessee, you got to get the hell out of there if you want to be a good quarterback. And I thought it was fun.
I will say, I actually like that for him to start off. I mean, he has Kendall Wright, he has Justin Hunter, and he has that kid Green Beckham to start off with. I actually like that core of wide receivers for him to start with. It's just whatever. It's Tennessee at the end of the day. That's the thing. That's the thing about these quarterbacks get drafted first round, whatever. They're on top of the world, and then it's exciting. You get drafted first overall, second overall. You're going to one of the worst teams in the league when that happens. So it's like you're gonna get hit with reality immediately, and both of these quarterbacks get hit with it immediately.
Do you think people are jumping off the Eagles bandwagon too early? The Chip Kelly bandwagon too early?
I talked about Chip Kelly with Rosalind Ross earlier this week, and I've been a Chip Kelly fan, and I actually do think he's smarter than the average coach. I like the fact he's taking chances on himself, chances with the roster. I think he's making a huge mistake banking on Sam Bradford, though. I was watching him today, Bradford. I've watched him since week 1. The only time Bradford looked good was in the second half of that Atlanta Falcons game. Let's be honest, the Falcons can't stop anybody. The Falcons defense is bad. I know their coach Quinn is going to have them playing good defense probably 2-3 years, but right now they're still a bad defense. And you saw Bradford last week. He looked terrible. You saw him today. He's throwing off his back foot. He's hitting guys in their ankles. I mean, when you look at how they beat the Jets, it was really because of a kick return or a punt return, by Darren Sproles, and then a turnover that the Jets made because Brandon Marshall was trying to put the ball back, and they put it down in the 20-yard line field position. The Eagles' offense didn't do much today either. So I don't know. The only thing that helps them is that they play in the NFC East, and I actually think he's the best coach in the NFC East right now.
Ooh.
So and look at his roster. He's still got talent on his roster, but playing in the NFC East will help him because Washington's terrible. And then you got the Giants who are awful, and Dallas.
They're not
we
awful.
Don't know what we're gonna. Yes, they are, man. Get out of here. The Giants
They should be 3-0, dude.
They're off, and what happens? Because they have a coach that's 85 years old, doesn't know how to manage a clock. Because it's past his dead time at 3:30 Eastern time, so he doesn't know how to manage a clock in the fourth quarter. And you got a turf as a quarterback. It's terrible. The Giants are awful.
Okay, well, with the Eagles. With Bradford, one thing I've noticed is I feel like he's had knee injuries. He's had, it looks like with the bottom half, it looks like to me he's trying to either overcompensate for one knee or the other whenever he's throwing. Either he can't find that perfect balance point, in my opinion, whenever he's throwing. And that's affected him a lot. Do you think it's, previous knee injuries that's caused that problem? Or Gee, or you
cut off? You cut off right there. I don't know what happened. You cut off right there. You were talking about Bradford's knees, and then you cut off.
Okay, we're gonna go on to another topic. All right, the Cowboys. How long can they survive without Romo and Des Bryant? Obviously,
I'm actually really sorry I missed your Bradford point, but every time you try talking about Bradford, you cut out. It's like God does not want you to talk bad about Sam Bradford. He must be a Christian or something. And he doesn't want you talking about Sam Bradford. But when it comes to the Romo thing, I think the Cowboys can be fine. I think the Cowboys could go on and win probably 4 games without him. Because I keep telling everybody I'm the old school kind of guy when I watch football, and I love offensive lines. They're still the best offensive line of football. And the only thing that's gonna hurt them is Garrett, because Garrett is a terrible head coach. And today was a great example of bad coaching because they should have beaten Atlanta today. Why did they stop running the ball with Joseph Randle in the second half? I will never know. In the first half, they had 97 yards, 3 touchdowns, and instead that they gave the ball to Darren McFadden and started throwing the ball with Whedon. Stop overthinking it. You have the best offensive line in football, and aside from when Des Bryant isn't there, you have no one else to throw to. So keep running the ball. And I really think if they would have kept on running with Joseph Randle, they would have won today. So it's all about Garrett not overthinking or whatever. But I think the Cowboys can win 3 or 4 more without Romo and be in good shape in that terrible, terrible division.
Patriots-wise, they go on to destroy the Jaguars. Not really much to read into here, but Brady should be suspended right now, but, playing like a god.
God. Get out of here with that.
Would have been suspended right now. But playing like a god right now, do you see anybody stopping them on their way back to the Super Bowl in the AFC?
I was talking about that today with my friends who were watching the game, and it was funny because they were well in control of that Jacksonville Jaguar game. And I was like, you know what? I'm betting on the Patriots second half. I'm not sure. Your bookmaker has it. Our guy, he lets us do second half bets. And it was 6.5 points. I was like, Belichick plays these games I mean, he coaches these games as if he's playing a video game. He just wants to run up the score on bad competition. And Brady is trying to be MVP of this league this year. And I really think with that attitude, and they have this kid Deion Lewis, who I've never heard of in my life. He's obviously like their version of Darren Sproles, you could say. Like Garrett Blunt came back and he looked good. There's just no stopping the machine that's the New England Patriots, And you gotta love it. You gotta love it though as a football fan, because as much as they're hated on, as much as like everyone in the league conspires against them, you can't keep this team out of like the AFC Championship game year in, year out.
Yeah, I feel like with the Patriots, the way their offense is this year, it's going to be tough to stop them. But if they get, into a game, are they going to be able to, play a slug it out type of game when it comes into, December or January? They've proven they can at certain points, but as long as they don't face Eli Manning in the Super Bowl, I can't see a team right now that can stop them. Like the Colts are bad. The Broncos, I mean, they can kind of grind it out now, but Peyton Manning's a shell of a human being. The Broncos defense, is pretty good right now.
Yeah,
I can't see. I just don't see very many teams in the AFC that are capable of knocking off the Patriots. Maybe the Bills, if Tyrod Taylor can be a game manager that everybody wants him to be. If he can do that, maybe the Bills, but I see that as an outside shot.
I actually like Taylor. I think he's done a pretty good job so far. I mean, he turned over the ball against New England, and even then, Buffalo almost jumped back into that game anyway. New England kind of dominated for most of that game, but late in the second half, Buffalo made a run. But I think Taylor has what it takes, because as long as he doesn't turn over the ball, it pretty much has the formula of those Rex Ryan teams that were led by Mark Sanchez, that all he had to do was not turn over the ball, and they were pretty much win games. And that's what they're doing in Buffalo. And not for nothing, I tell everybody every time, even though Rex Ryan may not beat New England every time, he doesn't get blown out by them. I think he only got blown out by them probably once or twice when he coached against them. So can we please, Bob, we're talking about the AFC East. Can people stop telling me about the Miami Dolphins for the past 3 or 4 years already? That the Miami Dolphins are on the come up and that Ryan Tannehill's taking that next step. Just stop it. The Dolphins are terrible. They should never sign Sue, and Tannehill's garbage.
Okay, I agree that the Dolphins are always they're like what the Houston Texans used to be, where it's like, oh, the Texans are coming, and then they go 8-8 again. That's what the Dolphins are right now. It's like, oh, the Dolphins are coming. They're probably not going to go 8-8, but it's like they're that dark horse team everybody falls in love with at the beginning of the year, and then they shit the bed, and nobody wants to watch them by the end of the season. But I will say this to you, like with quarterbacks, we've gotten so far in, like, Dalton's getting a huge contract. I actually kind of like Dalton. His playoffs.
He's playing really well so far too. He's actually playing really well.
Yeah, his numbers are pretty good through 4 years playing. His numbers are really good. But you look at like a guy like Tannehill. I mean, we've gotten so far down this road that pretty much if you have a serviceable quarterback, you're almost inclined that you have to pay him $100 million. And I don't like it, but that's just what we're into right now. And it's like, okay, well, who else would you get if you're the Dolphins? Can you really, put somebody else back there? Is there somebody better out there that you can get right now instead of Tannehill? And I don't think the answer is no, but that doesn't mean you should have to pay him $100 million. And I like,
exactly.
It does piss me off when people talk about, like, when Rivers got his guaranteed money this year, and they're like, oh, well, how many playoff wins has he had? LT failed him a few times in the playoffs. The dude played on a torn ACL.
I'd say so.
Rivers, I think, deserves that money. He's come back from the dead. He's, I feel like he deserved that money. And I don't feel like his playoff record is indicative of who he is.
And let's be honest, it's not like the San Diego Chargers have done anything draft-wise or free agent-wise to help out Phillip Rivers. They pretty much failed on every signing, on every draft pick. You know, I mean, the only person he's had is Antonio Gates. They didn't want to re-sign Vincent Jackson. They didn't want to keep Darren Sproles. You know, like they didn't keep anybody for. They have never done him a good justice. Like they should have gotten rid of Norv Turner in those years. Remember the Chargers were the favorite team to come out the AFC, and they would just get booted out the first round of the playoffs. I never understood how Norv Turner kept his job. You know, and those were really good stacked San Diego Chargers teams where Phillip Rivers was putting up MVP caliber seasons those years. So for all the bad people get Phillip Rivers, they don't never look at the flip side of that coin.
Well, yeah, it wasn't his fault that Sean Merriman fell off the face of the earth. It wasn't his fault that they got rid of Antonio Cromartie, who was a pretty good corner for them. You know, Sean Phillips was effective because of Merriman, and so his stats went down when Merriman went. It wasn't his fault that Nate Kading sucked as a field goal kicker in the playoffs. LT disappeared. LT might be the best magician, disappearing all the time in the playoffs. You know, and then, you know, okay, I don't necessarily disagree with getting rid of Marty Schottenheimer, but if you're going to respond with hiring Norv Turner, you got to be out of your damn mind that's going to work out. And they keep him for as long, like rationalize keeping him as long as they did. I mean, if you would have gotten like a Wisenhunt in there earlier, or, you know, you name it, a Bruce Arians, you know, like 5 years back. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Chargers have a ring.
Yeah, no, you're right, because they definitely have the talent to come out to AFC for that whole like North Turner run. You know, and I actually think Mike McCoy is a pretty good coach, but I just don't think they have the talent. You know, but whatever. I think we're talking too much about the San Diego Chargers.
Yeah. Considering they just lost today to the Vikings.
Let's just pass this on.
We just buried ourselves on this one. What do you think of the Broncos? With, you know, Peyton has definitely slowed down. I know you're not a big fan of Peyton, but with the way he's been, you know, the way he's been playing, if he, you know, just lets the running game do its job, their defense do their job, and him just kind of be, you know, not screw things up. This team's doesn't have a bad shot in the AFC.
You know, their defense I love. You know, like their defense is great. But what I don't like about them is that they're a running-based team now because they have two backs, so to speak. But, like, how much faith do people have in C.J. Anderson? Like, really? Yeah, I've been saying since the beginning of the year, Ronnie Hillman's the better running back. You know, and I think he is. But, like, how much faith are you putting into C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman as a power backfield? You know, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to Peyton Manning and whatever he's going to do with the team. You know, so that's the only thing. I still think because of their division and everything else, I still think they come up with 8 or 9 wins this year, and that's going to be enough for them. You know, but remember, they got to play against first-place teams from every other division too, and I don't think that's going to work out well for them. You know, it's just that when you're going to be a one-dimensional team, and that one dimension is presenting you C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman, there aren't going to be too many teams running for that. You know.
Yeah. What did you make of Chuck Pagano's comments about Andrew Luck and the offensive line the other on Monday?
Chuck Pagano got some nerve. I'll tell you that much. Because Chuck Pagano's probably the worst coach in the NFL, and Andrew Luck's saving his ass since he's been on that team. Granted, Andrew Luck's turning over the ball a lot, but I think everybody be a little bit be a little antsy in that pocket because he has no offensive line. He has. I mean, they gave him Frank Gore, great. You know, Frank actually had a good game today. But and then you give him a has-been and Andre Johnson. And what you guys? That's another team. They're pretty much doing what we were just talking about, what the Chargers did with Rivers. They're not giving any kind of support to Andrew Luck. Chuck Pagano's supposed to be a defensive coordinator, and out for nothing, Andrew Luck's had to bail him out with second-half comeback wins his whole career. So if I was Andrew Luck, I'd probably be like, you know what, I pulled my hamstring. Good luck next week, because you can't win without. So Chuck Pagano got slow as well. But Chuck Pagano was the worst coach in the league.
You know, it's tough. They were put in a tough spot. You know, Bruce Arians takes over, wins Coach of the Year, gets them to the playoffs. I feel like if Luck, Grigson is a terrible GM too. Let's not get that.
Terrible.
Let's not get not getting their best offensive line pick was like the 7th rounder this year. It's like, okay, that's the best you can do. I mean, does he need any more weapons? Like, I don't. I feel
exactly.
like he could make weapons out of nothing if he wanted to. Like,
yep.
And like T.Y. Hilton's good. Yeah, I feel like that's a good security blanket to have, good guy to have. But you don't need Andre Johnson. You didn't need to spend money on Frank Gore. You should have let Philly go ahead and take him. GM and coach both have to go. And I think they're going to regret never hiring Bruce Arians. That's going to cost them for a few more years.
Yeah, that Bruce Arians, like the Chuck McDonald's coming out from the cancer thing. So it was like, it was going to be a hard sell to be like, we're glad you've recovered, Chuck, but we're sticking with Bruce Arians. Like that just would have been kind of cold-hearted. It would have been a smarter business move, but it would have been cold-hearted. But yeah, the general manager has to go because as you said, they went out and signed Andre Johnson and Frank Gore for no reason. When you have a top 5 quarterback who can make star players from that offense, you needed to help them on the defensive side of the ball. Like the Colts had to play comeback against Tennessee today, Bob. Against Tennessee. You let the Tennessee Titans dictate the pace of the game of your defense. Your defense is trash to go.
All right. Well, G, before I let you go, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, all that good stuff?
Nah, man.
No, you're good.
I want you to follow me around, man. Now, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter. Check out the .com website, GSteelio, GEESTEELIO. Check me out on the NGSC Radio Network and the Happy Hour Network. There's no more GSteelio Sports Hour. We changed it now to the only show that matters. Hope you don't take offense to that, Bob. But we call it the only show that matters because I have a huge ego. So
it's a matter of opinion.
I got to get you on though, Bob. You're on a different time zone for me, so it's always weird. Like right now, I'm usually in bed watching like Adult Swim right now, but I stood up for you.
You gotta you gotta get me on. Let me cut loose. Get me a couple of beers in me, and I'll cut loose.
And I'm actually, you can curse, you can do whatever you want because whatever. I'm not getting paid for this, so whatever. Do whatever you want. What are they gonna do? Fire me?
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you can't do your show on our network anymore.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Whatever. I'll still do it for free on my own, I guess.
All righty, G. Well, I appreciate you coming on. It was good talking to you. We got to do this again soon.
Definitely, buddy. Thanks for having me on, man.
All righty, and we'll be right back here on the Bob Sullivan Show with Jameson Welsh. Talk some NBA, talk some NFL, talk some college football here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Something shines in your eyes tonight. Maybe there's no need to lie tonight. I see your lips out on fire. Oh baby, I want you to be mine. Catch me, baby, I'm waiting for you. So come on, break the rules. The time is right, the time's tonight. Let it start and you won't stop. Let it start and I won't stop.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. I'm joined here hour number 1, part 2 with Jameson Welsh of BelieveTheHypeNBA.com. Jameson, how you doing tonight?
Doing all right, man. Thanks for having me, Bob. Definitely appreciate it. It's been a while. Glad our schedule's worked out, but definitely appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no problem. It's definitely been a while. I do have to ask you, okay, you live in Vegas. You get to do a lot of interesting people watching. I have one to throw by you. I went to a local restaurant today, and there's a salad bar there, and I see a guy with a Nebraska shirt or Nebraska jersey tucked into jeans with suspenders over the jersey.
That's
Where does
a
that
no.
rank? Definitely a no. Yeah, I would say so as well. Have you encountered the suspenders over a jersey before?
Oh yeah. So whenever you watch a game at a sports book in Las Vegas, you see all kind of characters. You see all kind of jerseys, all kind of shirts. There's nothing outside of the limit. There's nothing that's going to surprise you or shock you. That's just how things go. So that's not surprising at all. That's just tucked in. That tucked in is strike number one, but tucked in with suspenders, that just can't happen. That cannot be.
Yeah, it's a local trend here for Husker fans to tuck in jerseys to jeans or whatever it may be. It's pathetic. And then the other big thing here in Nebraska is to wear hats with too many icons or logos on them. There's those. I feel like I need one logo in front and maybe something on the back, and that's it. Nebraska fans tend to have a Nebraska logo, 94 national championship logo on the side, a third logo on the other side, and then something on the back. I feel like that's too much going on one hat.
Doing way, way, way too much. But to each his own. Everyone has their own thing. That's just kind of how things go. But I'm not a big fan of certain things. Certain things. I'm more of a traditional person when it comes to wear and whatnot. So I'm a little bit different than most people. But to each his own.
Yeah. All right. So USC had a big weekend. UCLA had a big week. There's a lot of big weekends for Pac-12 football, and there's also a lot of low weekends for some of the other in those same games. Oregon, Arizona State, Arizona. What do you make of the Pac-12 right now?
Pac-12 is one of the best conferences in the country. It's tough because you have a lot of really good teams. I don't think you have an elite team. I think maybe UCLA could maybe qualify as an elite team based off what they did last night. But I don't think you see any elite teams. I think you see a conference with a lot of good teams that can beat you any given night. But I don't think you have any elite teams. So when you have a conference like that, it looks like you're going to have at least whoever wins is probably going to have 2 losses. That's how it's going to shake out. There's just too many good teams week in and week out that you got to play against that you can't sleep on. A team even as bad as Arizona State played last night, on their best day, they can still give someone a run. Stanford, where everyone left for dead, is still a solid team. Oregon, as bad as they look, and their defense is still bad. Offensively, if they get their things together, they're still an elite offensive team. So there's still a lot of things going on. And of course, USC is USC. With the talent they have, they have the most talent in the conference. It's just about getting it to click right. There's a lot of different things that are going on with this conference. I didn't mention Cal, who's undefeated and who has probably the best quarterback in the country draft-wise in Jeff Goff. So there's a lot of different things going on with the conference, but I don't think there's that elite team like last year, how Oregon was elite as a team. I don't think there's that team. But I do think that it's a very good conference that can play with anyone in the country.
Are you surprised Utah? I thought it might. What is this, year 4 or 5 for Utah in the Pac-12?
This is, I believe it's year 5, if I'm not mistaken.
I feel like it's happened a little, granted we're 4 weeks in, but I'm surprised at how quick they've kind of caught on to things in the Pac-12. And it's not I don't feel like they're a team where, I feel like they're a team to stay because I like Whittingham. I like, the way they recruit, Utah. I think with them, I thought they were going to be a team like a Kansas State in the Big 12 where they would have to capitalize on a year where, USC was down, where a lot of things had to bounce their way. A lot of teams had to be down for them to capitalize. I don't feel like it's going to be that way for them in this conference anymore.
Well, I'll put it this way. When I think about Utah, they've always been a talented team, a very well-coached team. They didn't always have the big talent at the skill positions, per se, like some of the other schools in the conference, like Oregon or USC or UCLA has. But they're always good up front. They're always tight up front. Always in their front 7 and on the offensive line, they're always solid. Now they have a couple of different playmakers on the outside. Their defense has always been good. And now things are shaking their way. Oregon's not that good. UCLA and USC are still really good. But now, those games are coin flips now. Those games, especially when UCLA goes up to Utah in the middle of November when it's probably going to be snowing, that's going to be an interesting game because Josh Rosen's never played in the snow. That's a game where a guy from Southern California goes up there against a really good defense and it's snowing, it's going to be a bit different. So, we shall see. But Utah has a lot of things going for themselves. We'll see how let's see how they react to pressure, because they've always been the underdog, the team that, it's just Utah. Now they're the team that people, when you blow out Oregon at home by 50, you're the team people are looking at like, all right, well, we got to pay attention to you now. Let's see how they deal with pressure.
Do you think that do you think they could potentially contend for a Final Four spot, them in UCLA, or do you think it's the Pac-12, because of how good it is going to get left out because of a 1 or 2 loss team?
I think you're going to have a 2-loss team in the Pac-12 not get in. And I think it's going to be unfortunate, but I just think that the way the conference is, there's too many good teams, but not that one great team that's just better than everybody else. I don't see that at the moment. We may see something in the next month or so, but I don't see that team that's just overbearing than everyone else. I don't see that at the moment. And if UCLA was healthy, it may have been them, but even then with the freshman quarterback, you really can't trust it because it's still a freshman quarterback who's going to have rough days. Like last weekend versus BYU, we had a rough day. There's going to be a couple more of those. That's just kind of how it goes. That's how freshman quarterbacks play. No matter how good you are, you're going to have a couple games where, you stick it up a little bit, and that's just nature of the beast. USC, if they get things together, we'll see. I'm not too optimistic about that, but if they do, they can play with anyone in the country. But at the same time, we got to wait and see. I just think that there's just so many. It's just so tough in the conference because you just never know what kind of game you're going to get from the opposing team. I mean, Stanford played terrible the first 2 weeks, and Kevin Hogan had the best game of his life. Travis Wilson had the game of his life last night, and they blew out Oregon by 50. So you just don't know what team, what player you're going to get.
Do you think we're going to head into do you see anybody being undefeated when we head to the Final Four?
I don't know if we've seen anyone undefeated. I will say this: Ohio State's not as good as we thought they were. Like they're not as good as we all thought they should be or what they are. They're not that good. They're still a good team, but they've come out sluggish way too many times, and they're just not that good. But I will say, in the Big Ten, it's only, it's a one team, it's pretty much 2-team race in the Big Ten. It's Michigan State and Ohio State, and both of those teams are overrated. I just don't know if they can escape. I don't know if they can get to their mid-November matchup, and they'll probably end up playing in their conference championship game. I don't know if they can get to their mid-November matchup with being undefeated. I mean, the Big Ten's not that good this year, and Michigan's going to be a spoiler for somebody. I just don't know. It's a weird situation right now how those two teams are, because those two teams haven't been impressive, but they've done just enough to keep where they're at.
Yeah, I feel like Michigan's going to upset one of those two, Michigan or Ohio State. Because, I feel like both of those teams, they're going to be both just looking so forward to that matchup, Ohio State and Michigan State, that I think that Michigan's going to get overlooked by one of those two at a certain point. I don't think it's going to be. I think they end up knocking off Michigan State, though.
Well, I will say this: Michigan's going to be the team that it gets better every game. They're really tough up front, and I'm not sure that game is versus Ohio State, but if that game's at Michigan, watch out. Like that could be a very interesting matchup because I really think that Harbaugh's going to have them ready to play, and that's a big recruiting game right now because you've got to understand there's a lot of those guys that they're after. Ohio State's after too, so that's a huge momentum shift game. It would not surprise me if they won one of those games and were very close to another because they're well coached and they have an identity and they're getting better every week. See, they're on the field, they're getting better every week.
Is there is there, like with TCU, what they did at Texas Tech, I feel like, they had the way they had to win. That was a tough game. Texas Tech's been playing well. Texas Tech's on the upswing as far as them getting better. A little bit of a nail biter. TCU's defense is a mess. Do you see them being a disappointment and missing the playoff?
Well, I think TCU is still good. I mean, they're getting guys injured every game, though. I mean, they're losing, like, significant pieces and parts every game. But That game reminded me of the last play reminded me of the Nebraska-Missouri game back in '97, I believe it was. You know, it was just crazy deflection back in the end zone, game-winning touchdown, and keep the season alive. But TCU's defense isn't as good. And also, I will say this, they're a team that, I mean, they feel that they got left out last year, but man, I don't know. They're good. They are very good. But their defense, which has been their calling card forever at TCU, isn't the same as it used to be. And I don't know if they can be a playoff team with that defense being so leaky. They just were not good yesterday. I watched most of that game. That's probably the best day on television. And it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good at all.
No, and I liked Gary Patterson's response when he was asked about them struggling on defense, not being able to stop anybody, and then him saying, I've been a part of these defensive battles, my whole career. What is it? I kind of like this, being able to outscore teams. I like him saying that, but it doesn't give me a lot of confidence as a fan in my team.
Well, it's tough, man, because I mean every game is different. Every game has a face of its own. Every game is different. And in college football, it's survive and advance. It's really survive and advance. It's really just get the done, especially if you're a top 5 team. You just want to survive, keep it pushing, keep it pushing. Style points don't matter. But certain conferences are a bit different. If you're in the SEC, even in a down year like I think this year may be, you just want to get your wins and get out the way. A team like LSU is going to be interesting because skill position wise they're really good, but the quarterback's going to cost them a game. Their lack of quarterback play is going to cost them at least one game. So it's just very interesting to see how that shakes out.
What do you make of the SEC this year? Alabama, Coker is not a good quarterback. Ole Miss, maybe they sneak in. LSU is good. Auburn's not what they used to be. Texas A&M, maybe they could do something. And the SEC East is terrible. Do you like anybody? I assume whoever wins the SEC title game, as long as it's not an SEC East team, I figured SEC West team is going to sneak into the playoff. Do you see that?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, it won't be Alabama. Alabama's not that good this year. It will not be them. I think LSU's probably the front runner for that. But we'll see what Ole Miss is about. We'll see if they can continue doing what they're doing. I mean, LSU seems like the front runner. They've done the best thus far. A&M isn't. I don't think A&M is there just yet, but they wouldn't surprise me. But LSU has to be the best team with Leonard Fournette back there. He has to be the guy that to carry them. He's the guy that he can take over a game at any given moment, and no one else has that weapon on their team.
Charlie Strong at Texas. The AD just got fired there. Black head coach at Texas, I don't feel like is something that's going to last too long. Not because he doesn't. I just don't feel like he's going to be given a fair shot. Do you agree he's not going to get a fair shot because of the or do you think he's just going to be based on the results?
Well, Bob, you got to understand. He really didn't get a fair shot to begin with because the main guy didn't want him there. The main guy really didn't want him there to begin with. So that was already a red flag from the jump. But it's a tough situation because Texas really thinks they're better than what they really are. And right now they're in the middle of the pack program that hasn't been really relevant on a big stage in a few years now. But they brought in Charlie Strong. He cut a half the team for various reasons, most of it drug related stuff, and he needs more time to get more talent. Now, I don't know if he's going to get that time. I don't think he will, but we're only going to know about him is if he, if he gets some talent, get some time. It takes time. I just don't know if he's going to get that time. And also, it's kind of tough when the guy who hires you gets fired, and that's in any walks of life. Whoever brought you in, if they get fired, that's always a red flag there. So I'm him. I'm updating my resume, and I am looking for a job in the SEC or in the ACC very, very quickly. You know what? He would be really good at the University of Miami. I think he'd be very good there.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, that would be a good pickup for them. I feel like he would be very well suited there. God, what was I going to ask? As far as Texas goes, do you think with the way Alabama's kind of going the way they're going, I feel like they're kind of on the downward slope of Saban's tenure. Do you think if Texas pops open again, Saban goes this time?
I don't think so. 'Cause I think Saban's a little older. I don't think he wants to restart somewhere else. At Alabama, he can do whatever he wants. He can get whatever he wants. At Texas, he has to win a national championship, and there's no guarantee that he would do that. That's the thing. There's no guarantee at Texas he would be able to get it done. At Alabama, he's already built in a lot of equity where if he has a couple of so-and-so seasons, if he has a 9-3 season mixed in here and there, it's not the end of the world. He's already won his rings. They already have a statue of him. But in terms of, in terms of going elsewhere, I think if he was going to do that, I think he would have already done it. And I don't think you really can't get any better than Alabama, especially when you won at Alabama. There's nowhere else you can go to have more success. I mean, it would pretty much, you're betting against yourself at that point because there's so much more you got to do to prove yourself to the Texas people, and I don't know if it's quite possible. I really don't. I mean, Nick Saban is always he's a great recruiter and a great coach. Just don't know if he can go all the way out to Texas, recruit, and get things taken care of. I don't know.
Do you buy any of the rumors about Lane Kiffin?
What do you mean by the term buy? I mean, because with Lane, there's something that you can't rule out anything with him. With him, you can't rule out anything. It's just, it's a situation where you can't he didn't do that. Well, you never know. You can't with him. There's no guarantee that he didn't do some of these things. It's kind of crazy because for a guy that has had so many chances, I mean, he always seems to be in the spotlight. He always seems to be in these raw situations. But I don't think he did these things. I don't. It wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt on these things for the moment. But if he did do these things, he has a lot of things to answer to.
Yeah, the rumors, I feel like there wouldn't be any rumors if they hadn't lost to Ole Miss. That's the only reason these rumors are out here. That's the only reason that these rumors are out there.
Right.
And I mean, with him, he, the booster's wife, I could see that. The guy you're coaching for, his daughter, that just sounds far-fetched to me. The booster's wife.
Lane's done a lot of crazy things, Bob. Lane's done a lot of crazy things as a coach, but I don't think he would smash Nick Saban's daughter. Not while he's on staff at Alabama. I just don't. I mean, the guy's bold. He's done a lot of crazy things, but man, to be that bold, if he does that, I don't know. I gotta give a bit of the doubt for
that. Right now, who are your final four?
It's weird because every team I've thought about and in and out, I've kind of been questionable. But number one, I got to put LSU in there. They've done the part. I got to put Notre Dame in there. They've been very, very good as well. Got to throw Ohio State. Well, I got to put Michigan State in there, probably Ohio State. And I really don't want to throw Ohio State in there, but they are number one. They haven't been beaten yet, so you got to respect the chance. And Michigan State beat at the time a top 5 ranked Oregon team at home, but as we saw, Oregon's not that good. So I don't know what to really think of that at the moment, and they haven't been as impressive either. But that'll be my top 4 right now. UCLA will probably be the 15. Outside looking in, they were very impressive versus Arizona and Utah. Utah was very impressive as well. They beat Michigan, who's a team on the rise, and also beating Oregon. Utah, I'd probably put in Utah before I put in one of those Big Ten schools because they've been very impressive thus far with a quarterback that's not that good. But it changes every week. Every week you have something different, so we just gotta wait to see.
Well, Jameson, before I let you go, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, all that good stuff.
All right. On Twitter at @VJameson. You can catch some of my work at BelieveTheHypeNBA.com. On Tuesday mornings at Fox Sports 1340 in Mexico. On Monday and Wednesdays out here in Vegas, the Sports 670 a.m., 10 a.m. to 11. And let's take a look here. Other than that, we also have our podcast coming up soon. It will be on LakersNation.com. Myself, Jabari, and Jordan Bustarini. We will have our weekly podcast on that site. So a lot of good things coming up, and just wait and see. It's going to be a fun season.
Yeah, I heard about the Lakers Nation thing. Congratulations on that. I hope everything goes well for you, and I appreciate you being on, Jameson. Always a pleasure talking.
Not a problem. Not a problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Yep. And we'll be right back here with Kenneth Teep of, I think it's the EmpireWritesBack.com here on the Bob Sullivan Show on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Baby, you're a mystery. Tell me what's a girl gotta do. Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, la, la, ooh, I never know nobody like you. Ooh, la, la, ooh, now, now I know you're down the neck. Ooh, la, ooh, na, 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 oh. Yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're out and it. Baby, you're a riddle, I'm caught up in the middle of you. I'm trying to think bigger, but I can't seem to figure it through. I wanna make it better, but now I'm scared of looking a fool. Oh, baby, no, I've never been very good at playing it cool. Just when I think I understand it all, I find I know nothing at all. I never know nobody like you. Ooh, now I know you're down the
the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Welcome back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. If you'd like to call in, the call-in number is 585-633-7487. I'm joined here in hour number 2 by Kenneth Teep of the EmpireRightsBack.com. Kenneth, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Bob. Thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, no problem. Little late to talk about it, but Giants hold on against the Redskins. A little scary going down the stretch there on Thursday. Does them being able to hold on for a victory give you a little bit of hope for this year?
It was definitely encouraging to see them finally win a game. I know they should have won the first two, it looks like, and it seems like they were trying to do the same thing Thursday against the Redskins, but the Redskins I guess, are just so poor of a team, at least the way it looked on Thursday, that they didn't even want to win, but it is a little encouraging for the Giants, especially with Victor Cruz looking like he's coming back. John Beason was able to play Thursday without any setbacks. So at least things are starting to look up a little bit for the Giants heading into next week against the Bills.
With the Giants, could be 3-0. Poor management down the stretch again. Poor clock management against the Cowboys. Poor clock management against the Falcons. But they play in the NFC East. They have a favorable schedule in the upcoming weeks. Do you think they can, win this division? Maybe make a playoff run, or do you think that's a little optimistic, even with the injuries in Dallas?
Well, given the state of the rest of the NFC, I think the Giants have as good a chance as anyone else does to do it. I know the Eagles beat the Jets today, but they haven't really been anything encouraging over the last couple of weeks. The Giants already beat the Redskins, which is nice. And like you said with the Cowboys, they were up big against the Falcons today, but you also saw at the same time that they're going to need a lot of adjusting to do without Tony Romo and Des Bryant there, because their defense got absolutely torched today. And really, that's what it comes down to. If you don't have your guys on offense, you need your defense to step up. And at least through 1 week, it doesn't look like the Cowboys are going to be able to get that.
Mm-hmm. In your opinion, what has happened to the AFC? Really, you look at it, it's the Patriots and pretty much everybody else. The Steelers, they're going to lose Big Ben for a couple weeks. They didn't look encouraging when they played the Patriots week 1. I know it's week 1, but they didn't look that great against them. They've looked, all right the last 2 weeks. Bengals look good. Do you see anybody that can knock off the Patriots right now in the AFC?
I thought coming into the season, the Steelers might have the best chance to, outside of their own division. But with Roethlisberger being hurt, I think we have to see a little while how they're going to look. I do like that Le'Veon Bell coming back then, and that should help a lot. But I think if the Patriots are going to lose, it'll have to come in their own division. But I thought that the Bills coming into the season were probably the biggest challenger to that, and they ripped through the Bills pretty easily last week. So if anyone's going to knock them off, it's more than likely have to come out of the division. And it might be, the Broncos have looked pretty poor the last couple of weeks, but you can never really count out a Peyton Manning-led team, I don't think.
Even with Peyton Manning as their quarterback, I like to count Peyton Manning out in the playoffs, especially in cold weather.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is true. So I guess, I think the Broncos, if the Broncos are going to win this year, it'll be because of their defense, not because of Peyton Manning leading their offense.
Yeah, their running game's pretty good too. They got the pieces around him to make it work. Maybe a little less Peyton Manning might go a long way for the Broncos. Actually, not having to have him throw 35 times in a game in cold weather will benefit them come playoff time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. If he can rely on running back C.J. Anderson. He looked good last year. He hasn't yet this season, but I think the Broncos have a couple problems they have to figure out with their offensive line first. But like the rest of the teams in the AFC, they have a relatively easy schedule at certain parts. Like their double road trip coming up, they get to go play at Oakland and at Cleveland, which aren't too intimidating of teams, and they get the Patriots at home this year, which is usually a bonus instead of having to travel east to face them.
In as far as looking at the NFC, Packers got the Chiefs tomorrow night. Seahawks won today. Is it pretty much a coin flip right now in the NFC to you, or do you like the Packers more than anybody? Do you think I kind of feel like the Seahawks are a 9-7, 8-8 team right now and going forward, even with the win today against the lowly Bears.
Oh yeah, obviously you can't count them out. We saw, they had some work to do. They had a couple of tough losses early in the season, but I think the Arizona Cardinals, as long as Carson Palmer can stay healthy, which is a really big if, I think they may actually be the best team in the NFC with that defense that they have, and they also have a lot of weapons offensively also. But if Carson Palmer can't stay healthy, they're going to drop down a couple of slots, because we saw last year when they started the season so well, but then he got hurt and they kind of fell apart. Because I don't think any of the NFC South teams are really too big of threats. They'll probably just beat up on each other, and their record will look good at the end of the season, but they're not anybody I would be worried about going up against, like the Packers.
Who is the worst team you've seen so far this year?
There are a couple teams that could definitely fall into that, but I would probably say, do you want like the worst looking one, or the one who's like the most surprising start that they had?
Well, we'll go surprising second, but like the worst looking so far, like the worst team in the NFL.
Okay. Probably just looking at, I know obviously it's a little tough to judge people depending on people getting hurt and stuff, but the Saints have looked really bad. Losing to the Buccaneers at home is pretty embarrassing. Even if Drew Brees was a little hurt, that's still a team they should probably pick. So I'd probably pick the Saints right now. With the Bears a close second, especially if Jimmy Clausen isn't going to keep playing quarterback.
We were talking before the season about Drew Brees and how, granted he wasn't there this week, about how he's kind of washed and didn't love him, fantasy-wise, didn't really like him at all, even throughout his entire career. But do you think it's time to start looking at other options long-term instead of Drew Brees if you're the Saints? Would you take a quarterback in the first or second round in the draft next year?
I think they should definitely start looking into it, because even if they still feel confident in Brees playing for another, 2-3 seasons, they could have a situation on the hands kind of like the Packers had with Favre and Rodgers. We have someone on the bench that you need to groom, because this is the same problem that I've been worried about with the Giants, is that they don't have any backup plan right now. If Eli Manning were to leave, I know he signed the contract extension, so he should stay here, but even if he got hurt, they just don't have any backup plan. So I think it would be better, especially for a team like the Saints, to start looking at options to bring in and kind of groom as the next quarterback.
Looking at the Cowboys, without Romo, without Dez Bryant, they kind of, things didn't bounce their way down the stretch in that game. Bad coaching down the stretch. Do you think they can, find a way to tread water in the meantime because of the way the NFC East is, or do you think they're going to struggle mightily without Romo?
The biggest problem, because I'm looking at the schedule now, is it's without Tony Romo from the teams they have to face. I know, like we just talked about the Saints, obviously, that's a winnable game, but anytime you go to the Superdome, it's tough. But after that, then they host the Patriots, they go to the Giants, they host the Seahawks, which are 3 games I think they'll probably be underdogs in. So I think it might be tough for them to tread water without Tony Romo, especially if he's out closer to the, like the 8 to 10 weeks, if he comes back closer to the 10 weeks then, because then by that time they could already be way out of the playoff picture. But like you said, with how the NFC East looks, I guess they still always technically have a chance, because they are in first place now. They already beat the Giants and they already beat the Eagles, so they have a leg up on those two teams. So they definitely started the season how you have to if you're going to suffer a catastrophic injury like that.
Right now, who do you see being the first coach to go in the NFL? Do you see a coach getting fired in the next few weeks?
If I had to pick one, I would probably say Joe Philbin with the Dolphins, just because the start to their season is really surprising to me, and I thought they could have had a chance to, do something in the AFC East, kind of make some noise. But I think just looking at the other guys, sort of disappointing teams, it's been not like put never a coach on the hot seat. But I think with the moves that the Dolphins made, I would assume they thought they would be better than 1-2, especially since they got crushed today and they looked horrible even in their win against the Redskins in Week 1, and they lost at the Jaguars last week. So I would say if anyone it would probably be him right now. Would be he's on the hottest seat in the NFL, I think.
Before the season started, I was thinking the Raiders could win 7 or 8 games. And then after Week 1 against the Bengals, I jumped off that bandwagon. Now I'm starting to kind of jump back on that bandwagon. Raiders now 2-1. I could see them, potentially having a chance to, get 7 or 8 wins and possibly be in the hunt towards the end of the season. Week 16 or 17, they get eliminated. Do you see them as a 7 or 8 win team?
I thought coming into the season, like you did, I really thought they would be an improved team. I think David Carr is a pretty good quarterback, and the more weapons they put around him, the better he'll get. So I don't see why they can't win 7 or 8 games. Just looking at their schedule, they get to play the Bears next week, they're not very good. They need to have toss-up games in there like the Titans. They could beat them. And then anytime a team has to travel out west, like we saw last week with the Ravens, that's never a fun place to play. So maybe if they could trip up, those teams that are coming out there that are out of division games, and then just go 500 in division, that's easily 7 or 8 wins.
The game in London is happening next week, I think this week, with the Bills and Jets. Or with or who is it, Dolphins and Jets, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. Do you see a team moving to London in the next 3? What do you think happens first, London or LA? Because I feel like LA is still a pipe dream for the NFL. I feel like London's more realistic at this point for some odd, stupid reason that they would send Jacksonville over there or something.
Yeah, they definitely seem like they want to expand over into Europe, but I don't see how it would work logistically. I don't know how you would set up a schedule with the team having to travel out there and with the time difference and stuff. So I would probably say a team would be in Los Angeles before they put on a team outside the United States.
I don't like the London thing. I've always wanted an NBA division in Europe with team in London, a team in Paris, team in Berlin, Madrid or something like Barcelona, something like that. Get rid of the Milwaukee Bucks, something like that. I see that possibly working in the NBA. NFL, you can sell 1 or 2 games a year to London, but long term, it doesn't make any sense to me. NFL Europe didn't work. 1 or 2 games is great, but I don't see any team wanting to go over there, and I don't see any players wanting to go over there and play in the NFL in London.
Mm-hmm. I would agree with that because I think the travel already is hard enough for some of these players. Playing on Thursday night, going from a Monday night on a short week is tough enough. And unlike basketball, where you're seeing more European players come out, where I guess they have a talent base, you could say already. I don't really see that in the NFL. There's not many international players and teams in the NFL, so I'm not sure how they would go about building sort of a division or a league there, like you said. But I think they kind of already have something at least that they could build off of or use a model of using one of the international leagues there. I know they said, I think it was either Barcelona, or Real, one of the 2 basketball teams they want to get into the NBA in some form or fashion. So you already have teams there that are interested in kind of joining the NBA. I don't know if they have anything built like that yet for the NFL.
Do you think, with London and LA, other than the Chargers and Raiders, which seems like those two are going to one or both are going to be in LA at some point, and probably the Rams. Do you see any other teams other than those three wanting to move? Probably Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville will be the only other one. I haven't really heard many other teams, complaining about what they want to do. And I know people want to move the Bills, but if I remember correctly, I think they just got bought, so they should be staying in Buffalo. I think that was part of the deal. But if they moved anywhere, it'd probably be up to Canada. But I think that they would fight pretty hard to keep the Bills there. But I think the 4 teams you named are most likely the only 4 that have any real shot at moving in the next couple of seasons.
I always wonder what happened to Mexico City as far as NFL goes, because that was they had that game between, I think, the Cardinals and 49ers years ago in Mexico City in the preseason, and that everybody's like, oh, Mexico City, this is going to be how we get international with the NFL, and then that completely fell through. I don't know whether it was drug trade or whatever it was in Mexico, but that went out the window. It's a mystery to me why Mexico just went from a viable destination to not a destination anybody wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think the NBA plays it may be even regular season games. I think the Spurs played against the Timberwolves there last year, and the game they were supposed to play got canceled because the arena got smoked out because of the air conditioning one or something like that. So I would guess it has something to do with the infrastructure of the places there. They probably just can't handle professional sports on a regular basis like they do here. That would be my best guess. But I'm not really sure. Like you said, it was interesting because they wanted it there so badly, and then they kind of just wiped it off the map and kind of forgot about it.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the Rams possibly moving. Speaking of the Rams, Jeff Fisher. Continuing to be praised for being a mediocre coach in the NFL. How much time should the Rams give him? Should they just keep going this route of, convincing people that Jeff Fisher's a great coach? Or do you think one more year, this is the last year? What would you do if you're the Rams with Jeff Fisher?
He's probably got to be close to being at the end of his leash. I'm not sure how many years he's been there. I think it's either his 3rd or 4th season there. But he always seems to pull something out each season where they give, the fans their confidence in the team. Like this year, they started off 1-0 because they beat Seattle. But then they come back and they lose at Washington. And then they lost to the Steelers today. They always seem to fall a little bit short of expectations. I know they have a really good defense. A defense many teams would like to have, but they're still they leave so much to be desired offensively. They don't really have much of a run game until maybe Todd Gurley comes back, but they really don't have many weapons that you would want offensively.
Right now, what teams do you think should be looking at drafting a quarterback? Like teams that right now should be looking at drafting a quarterback in the draft after 3 weeks. A little overreaction, but who do you think should be looking into that right now?
Right now, I would say the Redskins, the Bears, probably the Texans. I guess the Browns, if they're not going to use Johnny Manziel, they might as well get someone that they want to use. And I would probably say I personally think it's more of a problem because of their offensive line, but I'd probably say the Eagles because Sam Bradford just hasn't looked comfortable yet this season. But I think that's more of a reason because of their offensive line than of anything that he doesn't do well. But I'd say probably those are the top 5 right now that probably need a quarterback.
Do you think the 49ers should look in that direction?
After what Colin Kaepernick did today, I would say that they should definitely start considering it. Because I know he's made improvements, they say, in, his mechanics and stuff. It looked at today almost like the Cardinals knew what was going to be ran before the 49ers ran it, which is never a good thing. But I think that they might give him, I don't even know if they want to, but they almost have to give him more time after the contract they gave him. I don't know if they can afford to bring in another quarterback and start a quarterback controversy with how much money that they're going to be paying him.
If you're the Redskins with RG3, obviously he's pretty much done there. I don't see him playing again with the Redskins. Do you see, obviously, a change of scenery he's going to have, but do you see a team that would fit Robert Griffin III, or that would be someplace he could go to succeed, or do you just see him as, a quarterback that's just not going to be as good as he was when he was a rookie?
I don't know if he'll ever replicate what he did as a rookie. It doesn't. That's the style of offense that kind of tailored to him. I'm not sure if that's something that even exists anymore in the NFL. But I would. One of the teams, I know it can sound weird, but I honestly thought the Jets were someone that would take a look at trading for him. I think that he was his best in a spread offense like the Jets try to run. And since they seem to be kind of done with Geno Smith, I think that's one team that would definitely look into him. But I'm not sure really even what he has left. If he hasn't looked good, like you said, in recent seasons, and after all those injuries, I don't know how much a team could really afford to invest in a player like that.
Yeah, it's surprising with him. He got injured at the end of his rookie year, but with him, I don't think it's a matter of him not trying to get better or anything like that. It's just I think he's kind of thick-headed, a little stubborn when he gets on the field. Like maybe he's trying to make changes in the offseason to what he does, but once he gets out there on the field, it's just I've never seen anything with him where he's he hasn't made any progress, which is kind of disheartening if you're a Redskins fan. And he hasn't really been allowed to make any progress either with Jay Gruden.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the coaching staff came in almost right away. They didn't seem to click. But like you said, he digressed a lot from his rookie season to his sophomore season, and last year was pretty much a train wreck. But I'm not sure that the coaching staff really gave him a fair shake, because you have to kind of adapt to your players, and the players have to adapt to you. Like we saw even just this week with Peyton Manning and Gary Kubiak, that they came to almost like an agreement on they're going to go to things that Peyton Manning's comfortable with. Obviously, Robert Griffin hasn't deserved to be, given the reins to an offense, but I think they could have definitely done a little bit better, working together, because like you said, they've invested a ton of stuff into him, and to give up on him before his rookie contract is even over is definitely disheartening for anyone that's a fan of the Redskins.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back here with Kenneth Deep of the EmpireRightsBack.com, we're going to talk some NBA, some Knicks Media Day, and we'll be right back here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Back to the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. I am joined again by Kenneth Teep of EmpireRightsBack.com. Kenneth, Knicks Media Day is tomorrow, or, it is tomorrow. I'm hopeful for this season. I feel like, making a race for 8th is possible. I feel like their additions of Robin Lopez, Aflalo, Derek Williams, those aren't, marquee names or anything, but those are, 3 guys that can contribute. And those are, with Melo, maybe them going to a little bit more of a defensive style. I like the way this team is looking right now, not just for this year, but for a couple years down the road. Do you think that, making a charge for the 8th seed is possible this year?
I personally think it is. Like you said, it's probably just, I don't know why we have it, but we always have optimism for the Knicks going into the season. I'm not sure why, as Knicks fans, we do, but I don't see why they can't challenge for an 8th seed. I'm not sure, really. It's like, I know the Bucks got Monroe, and they have Jabari Parker coming back. They'll probably be okay again, but I don't see why the Knicks won't improve over teams like the Brooklyn Nets or the Boston Celtics, teams like that, especially now that they have, like you mentioned, those 3 guys. Those are 3 NBA players that the Knicks didn't have last year. I don't even know if you would say by the end of the season, or even after they traded Shumpert and J.R. Smith, that there were 3 guys that you would confidently say would be in the rotation for a majority of the other NBA teams in the league.
Are you high on the Greek Freak's brother? I like Giannis, but his brother Thanis. I feel like he's Giannis is very raw. Thanis is very raw, even more raw than Greek Freak. Do you like his upside? I feel like people are talking about him a little too much.
I think there's some Knicks fans that like him just because he's related to Giannis on the Bucks, because he obviously doesn't have the same physical abilities or as much upside as he does. But I think it's nice that they have someone like him. And, he likes to play defense. He likes to hustle. But at the same time, he is such a huge liability offensively that he would have to come into a game and literally shut down the best player on the other team to be useful to the Knicks in any way, at least right now. Until he gets any sort of a jump shot or just a go-to move offensively, I think it'll be hard for him to find minutes on the Knicks team, even one that has as many question marks as they have right now at the wing.
Do you think Jerian Grant is going to be effective early on, or do you think he's going to be, a slow starter and then, late in the season he's not going to be rookie of the year, but, maybe gets a little consideration towards the end just because he'll have the playing time. I feel like, he's going to be slow getting going, but I feel like after the All-Star break, he'll probably start to hit his groove.
I definitely feel as the season goes on, the Knicks will give him a bigger and bigger role in the offense. I don't know, like you said, if he'll start right away, but I think he could definitely be starting by the All-Star break. Maybe not taking over for Calderon, but maybe playing next to him in the starting lineup, because it's hard to run in NBA offense, as a multiple-year veteran. So as a rookie, it's definitely difficult. But I think that with the offense that the Knicks try to run, where it's a traditional point guard, like in the form of, let's say, like a Steve Nash or Chris Paul, that's not exactly what they need out of their point guard. So that's why I think that you could definitely see him have a role from the beginning that just grows as the season gets bigger, and he gains confidence from playing in the NBA.
What is the biggest concern for you with the Knicks going into this year?
Probably just because of how many games he missed last year, Carmelo Anthony's health. Because as long as he's on the court, I think they have a chance to make the playoffs. But if he goes down, it won't be as ugly as last year with the moves that they made this year. But I nothing could probably be as ugly as it was last year. But it wouldn't be very pretty if he went down. So I think that's the biggest concern. But they said right now that he's feeling good going into training camp. So if he's healthy, I think the next biggest concern is just finding a consistent number 2 scorer next to him, which has seemingly been the problem the whole time that he's been here.
If the Knicks are, have a bad start to the season, things aren't going well, Melo looks checked out, do you see potential for Melo getting traded at the deadline?
I mean, I guess that always has to be under consideration, especially if he pushes for it. Since he has a full no trade clause, I don't think the Knicks will put him on the market unless it's something that him or his agent initiates. That's because if they do it without his permission, it's pretty limited. It's hard to negotiate if you don't know if he'll accept the trade to one place or another. But if they struggle again and he starts getting a little testy, like you said, or, he just doesn't look into it, I think it's definitely something that could be brought up because even though he is coming off an injury, he still is one of the best scorers in the NBA. So I could definitely see a team maybe like, I don't know, the Bulls always seem to need another go-to scorer, something like that. Or maybe a team that's, on the cusp of being a contender, they're just missing that one other piece, and maybe him agreeing to go there. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to where he wants to go. He has really all final say if he gets traded or not.
Who do you think would be a suitor for him if that came up? That he would approve of, and that would probably make a trade for him.
Well, judging by just from how his free agency went last year, I would say it's pretty limited. I think he has a very specific idea of what he wants. Probably a big market, so I think it would be really limited to probably the Bulls. And then maybe the Lakers, because I know the Suns may have pieces that the Knicks are interested in. I don't envision him agreeing to a trade to go to Phoenix. But I think the Knicks are pretty limited to really just any big market team that'd be willing to absorb his contract.
Hopefully the Nets.
That would be nice. I mean, if the Nets were, I don't know what the Knicks would get back from the Nets. And personally, if I was trading for Melo Anthony, I would want young players and draft picks, which the Nets arguably have less of than the Knicks already. But I'm not sure. I mean, it would definitely be interesting if they did trade him and it went there. I'm sure there'd be a lot of Knicks fans flip-flopping their allegiances at the same time, too.
Which is weird to me because it's, Nick Melo has had great years with the Knicks, but the Knicks as a team have only had one really good year with Melo. It's just weird that Knicks fans are willing to bend over backwards for this guy that the team has been subpar when he's been there, and I don't understand how they could as Knicks fans can hate a guy like Marbury so much, which I did and everybody did, and they were a lot worse team. But you could argue Melo he's had a little bit more success, but I don't understand the bending over backwards for this guy like he's the savior, because he's not right now.
Yeah, because I know you're obviously on social media a lot, and a lot of it people compare him to Patrick Ewing, which obviously I don't remember Patrick Ewing playing much. I remember some of it because I was too little when he was playing, but just judging from how good those teams were, I know different game back in the '90s, and they were defensive minded. But those teams were, in the playoffs every year. You could count on them being in the playoffs and having, a series with either the Pacers or the Bulls, and it being a rough series. I don't see that happening with the Knicks. Like we're talking right now, we're happy if he leads the Knicks to an 8th seed. If Patrick Ewing would have done that, they would have run him out of town.
Yeah, and they ran Don Nelson out of town when they had a down year after Riley left. Yeah, it's just funny to me that all the bending over backwards for this guy. But looking elsewhere in the NBA, looking at the Clippers, bringing in Paul Pierce, bringing in Lance Stevenson, bring back DeAndre Jordan, controversy there. Do you like what they've done? Do you think it's a powder keg ready to explode with all those different personalities that Doc Rivers is going to have to manage? What is your take on the Clippers?
On paper, they obviously look much stronger. They finally have, backups to come off the bench. They're probably one of the stronger benches in the NBA right now. But at the same time, you added some strong personalities to a group that was already kind of, I guess you'd say kind of mentally weak already. So it's definitely going to be a lot on Doc Rivers' plate to try to get these guys all kind of to buy into playing smaller roles and to, kind of be fit in as like a real team, because they do have a lot of talent there, but you can already see some players aren't happy with the direction the teams are going. Like I know Jamal Crawford, sent some cryptic tweets and stuff like that, and he's probably going to see his minutes cut drastically. But at the same time, the role that he played, was that something that Lance Stevenson will excel at? So I guess it's going to kind of be a work in progress for the Clippers. But in the Western Conference, you can't be tinkering too long, or you'll find yourself thinking that you should be a top seed team and barely make the playoff at 8 seed, and then having to play like the Warriors or the Rockets or the Spurs in the first round of the playoffs.
Granted, I know he's like 37 or 38, but I do think it's huge for the Clippers to not have to rely on, to have a guy like Paul Pierce to take a shot at the end of the game that's not Chris Paul. Not that Chris Paul can't score or that he's not clutch, but he is 6 foot tall. And if that's the guy you're relying on to get a shot at the end of the game, it's going to be tough for him to get a shot off, especially when you can put a slightly bigger guy that's just as fast or fast enough to guard him. For him to get a shot up over a 6'3", 6'4" guy is tough. And now to have that, kind of security blanket in Pierce, who's been there before, who can still hit a clutch shot and won't be bogged down in minutes this year. I think that's going to be huge for them to have, a guy that they can go to not down the stretch, but late in the game, with like 30 seconds to go, they need a big shot. I think that's going to be huge to not have to rely on Chris Paul for that anymore.
Yeah, just having that veteran presence there, a guy that knows how to win. We saw that already help the Wizards for the 1 year he was there. They grew up pretty fast, it looked like. I think that's something that he could help, because I know, like we said, the Clippers are a pretty veteran-laden team, but they're pretty inexperienced when it comes to, winning games that matter or having success in the playoffs. And that's somewhere that we've seen, especially as Knicks fans, because he's done it time and time again, where he just kills you when it matters the most. So I'm happy he's out west, and I won't have to see him as much playing against the Knicks and destroying them all the time. I think he should be able to help the Clippers, though, but like you said, they're not going to be able to rely on him to be playing 30 minutes a game. It's going to be probably some spot starts here or there if he plays, but I think that he's also another guy they have to figure out where he fits in. Because I don't see how he fits in coming off the bench.
Yeah, I don't see that being a good fit, him off the bench. I see him, 20, 25 minutes starting would be probably that would be good enough, in my opinion. That's what you need, not him coming off the bench, playing a limited role. I don't see that being effective for them. Do you think the NBA, the association, would be failing us as fans if they did not follow the Sacramento Kings this year?
Oh, 100%. Because I was actually hoping the Kings would sign Josh Smith after they got Rajon Rondo. Because I was just hoping, if you're going to, make a powder keg like that, you might as well go all the way and just see what happens if you throw all those guys together. But I mean, I would 100% agree that if they don't get some sort of the association, there's something, they have to get something to follow these guys around. Even even someone like Coley Stein, with his his mindset and attitude just playing basketball, that's just something that you have to put on TV, especially with a guy that seems like as anal as George Karl is about everything. This could really be some good television for NBA fans to watch.
It could be good television, and I feel like this team has one of two things is going to happen. They're going to be either a 7th seed or they're going to be like the third worst team in the West. I don't see anything in between. like I think they're capable. With Cousins, if Rondo is semi-motivated, I like Cauley Stein defensively, but he's going to take a while to get going. Kufis, I mean, you got three big guys there. Kind of that what was successful with George Karl in Denver when he had JaVale, Kufis, and Mozgov. That was successful for him. So he's got three big guys again. And then you throw in a guy like Bellinelli. I don't think this team, is that far off from making I think they could potentially make the playoffs and be a fine team to watch. But again, everything could blow up in their face because of all these egos and idiots that they have.
Yeah, that's definitely, speaking of tough teams to handle, they're definitely going to be up there. But like you said, the talent is definitely there. Like, there's not many. You'd be hard-pressed to find a center that can dominate a game like DeMarcus Cousins can. And hopefully he matures a little more, but I feel like their problem always has been is that they've had too many young guys. They've never had that veteran trying to lead them, which is why I think bringing a guy like Bellinelli, Caron Butler will help more than people think that it will. I agree with you. They have the talent to push for a playoff spot, but at the same time, they could also be staring at a top 5 pick again because this really just has the potential to blow up in their face.
Could you see a potential for, it's been talked about how George Karl likes Nikolai Vucevic from the Magic. Could you see a potential, I think we talked about this, but a big potential blockbuster involving him and DeMarcus Cousins maybe before the season starts or, a little bit into the season?
Mm-hmm. I think that if I'm the Kings and it comes down to moving either Cousins or firing George Karl, I would probably fire George Karl first. Since Cousins is locked into a contract, he can't really just say, I quit like George Karl can. But if they're going to trade him for anyone in the NBA, Vucevic would definitely be at the top of my list, at least center-wise. I really like what he does offensively. He's already one of the better rebounders in the NBA, so if you're going to move Cousins, it's going to be hard to get value back, but getting someone like Vucevic would be a really good start.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's go to Orlando. I like the team. I like Tobias Harris. I like Vucevic. I like Oladipo, Elfrid Payton. I like Fournier. And the thing that concerns me, though, is them hiring Scott Skiles. Is there a guy that's more, I guess, getting more shots than he deserves as a coach than Scott Skiles? Because, he has, one good season with every team, and then it just blows up because he just grinds guys down. I don't understand why he was hired in Orlando. I feel like somebody else could have been a better fit, like a Thibodeau. Thibodeau wasn't available at the time, but they could have done better than Scott Skiles.
Yeah, because I know Skiles coached Tobias Harris when they were in Milwaukee, and I don't think it went too well. I know they're going to say everything was worked out, but that didn't seem like a relationship that was working too well, especially since they traded Tobias Harris away. I'm pretty sure the year that they fired Scott Skiles. So I mean that seems like a pretty messy situation from the start, but there is a lot of young talent on this team to like, which I mean, like you said, I like Oladipo also. I'm a fan of. I think Aaron Gordon could develop pretty well, and I just think it's a matter of if they could get a veteran kind of to hold it all together. Which is, I think, part of the reason maybe they hired someone like Scott Skiles instead of hiring, an assistant coach in his first-time job like they did with Jock Vaughn first time. I think they were a little early doing that, but I don't really see how Skiles works out with a team like this. I know his approach to coaching seems more like you would get out of a college basketball coach, but I guess these guys are closer to college basketball age than than some other teams are. But I could see him kind of running some of these younger guys into the ground a little earlier than the Magic would hope.
Elfrid Payton and Oladipo, pretty defensive-minded backcourt. It's pretty similar to what the Celtics had when they had Bradley and Rondo there. Oladipo is a little bit better offensively than Bradley, though. Would you consider moving one of these two? I like both of them, but I don't feel like I feel like it's a little too defensive minded in the backcourt for it to be successful, and not enough focus on the offensive end.
Especially with how the NBA is transitioning now on the offensive side, it's tough to have two guys, let alone one on the court that can't shoot, and both these guys kind of struggle with their jump shots. You have to have someone that can space the floor a little bit to be successful, I think, in the NBA now. As we've seen, most of the teams that are winning in the playoffs have deadly three-point shooters from at least one, if not two or three spots on the court. So I think that's definitely something they might have to look into. Unless either of them can develop a consistent jump shot, it's going to be tough for them to score, I think, sometimes in the half court, because even if you go into someone like Vucevic, he's going to be facing a lot of cramped paint and stuff, because if you don't have to worry about your two guards and then still your wing players not being able to shoot the ball, it's going to be hard to score.
Yeah. Looking in Miami, bringing Amari Stoudemire, Justice Winslow, Chris Bosh looks like he's going to be back. Don't know what you're going to get out of him. Seems to be like kind of the favorite to maybe challenge Cleveland if they're healthy. Do you see that? Do you see them making a comeback this year if they stay healthy?
I think the Heat have arguably the best starting lineup in the Eastern Conference, especially if they're healthy. With Dragic at point guard, then you have Wade, Dang, you have Bosh, and then Whiteside next to him. I think that's arguably the best starting lineup, but you're relying on a lot of people that have had a lot of injury problems. I know some of Wade have been kind of, scheduled rest, but you don't know where you're going to get at Chris Bosh. You hope he's okay with what he had to deal with last year, but you're never too sure. Then Dang just can't stay healthy. I think he's been ruined from his time with the Bulls, but I think they did a good job of getting players to come off the bench in case this happens. I think they made their team a lot more deep to combat injuries to their top line guys.
Do you? I didn't like Cleveland's offseason really at all. I think this whole Tristan Thompson thing. Oh, he's willing to come down to 3 years and $54 million. That's still going to be an issue come next. Who knows when that's going to get taken care of, and two, whether he's going to be happy or not. And then, what are they going to do as far as Love, Tristan Thompson, Mozgov, Bergeron? What are they going to do as far as front line goes? How are they going to start people? Who's going to come off the bench? Who's going to be happy? Who's not going to be happy? Kyrie Irving is going to be out till like January, and they're going to be out without any. I guess they got Mo Williams, but not really anybody good to bring the ball up the court other than LeBron right now, or J.R. Smith. Kind of concerning to me early on in the season for them.
Especially since there are some people saying Kyrie Irving might not come back till after Christmas just because the Cavaliers want to play it safe. But I'm with you. I mean, that whole Tristan Thompson thing is almost that's a huge joke to me right now, because I've never seen. He's a bench player on the team. Even he's coming off the bench. I've never seen a bench player almost demand to be paid as much as he wants. There's no way a guy who only rebounds and will be coming off the bench should be making upwards of $18 million in a season. That's just not how you build a team. That's a poor way to go about building a team. And I can see the Cavaliers caving eventually, just because if you don't have him here, you have Anderson Varejao, who's a huge injury risk, and you have Kevin Love, who's coming back from injury. So if you don't have someone backing them up, it's going to be looking like they were in the NBA Finals again, where they barely have enough healthy bodies to run out on the court.
I don't understand the whole Tristan Thompson thing either. Like, it's kind of like Draymond Green, where those two Draymond Green, I feel, is way more effective than Tristan Thompson, but I feel like those two are only effective in Golden State and Cleveland, respectively. Like I feel like if Draymond Green goes elsewhere, if he goes to would have gone to like Dallas and signed there or something, he would just be another guy. But he's really valuable to that team. I feel like Tristan Thompson is really valuable to the Cavs, but not $91 million over 5 years valuable. It just blows my mind that anybody could try to convince me or an organization that he's worth that much money, and obviously they're having trouble convincing the Cavs of that because he hasn't signed yet. And also, if you're nobody signed him to an offer sheet or attempted to because they know, like, well, one, Cleveland might let him go if they sign him for too much, and they know he's not worth that money. He's in a good position. He's not really in a good position, but I don't understand why Cleveland would pay him as much as he's asking for. Even 3 years, 54 is a lot of money.
Because, like you said, he might fit into their system, but you can't budget that much money towards one player that is so one-dimensional as he is. I know people say that the salary cap is going to be rising again and stuff like that, but even so, if the salary cap could rise to $100 million, I don't want Tristan Thompson making 17% of that. That just seems like an absurd amount of money for a guy with his skill set to be making. So I mean, he might be in a pretty good place financially right now because either he's going to get too much money either way, but I don't know how long this will take because, like you said, there didn't seem to be any other teams that are interested, no matter what his agent said. I know they said like maybe their fallback options the Raptors, but where are the Raptors getting any money to hand to a guy like that?
Yeah. If looking at Indiana, Paul George came back late last year, as a full off season to get healthy again. They're bringing Miles Turner. They're bringing the guy from Oregon. And I feel like the guy from Oregon's going to be a good good guy to come off the bench. Miles Turner's not bad up front. Losing Hibbert, though, losing David West. Do you see this team making any improvements, or do you see them struggling? And do you like the idea of Paul George playing 4?
I think they should be a little better than they were last year. Having a guy talented as Paul George will obviously help. I think they would have been an easy shoe-in for the playoffs, obviously, in the Eastern Conference. But they didn't really bring in much to – I know Hibbert has fallen off a lot recently, but he's still someone you have to replace, the presence he can have defensively. And then the veteran leadership that David West brought, they didn't really do much to replace that. It's going to be tough to see guys like Jordan Hill and Miles Turner replace veterans like that, even Jan Mahinmi stepping into the starting lineup. But moving Paul George to the power forward, I guess that's their way of, replacing David West minutes, but I really don't see how that's going to work. How you have a guy who's been playing shooting guard and small forward his whole career move up to a spot where he's going to be banging with bigger, stronger guys coming off a serious injury. Maybe it helps so he isn't chasing guys around the perimeter, but I can't see him holding up playing down low against guys that are probably going to outweigh him by, 30, 40, 50 pounds even sometimes some nights.
A couple more things. The Lakers, looking at them, bringing Roy Hibbert, bringing Brandon Bass, bringing Lou Williams. They draft D'Angelo Russell, Larry Nance Jr. They bring back Meta World Peace. That might cause a Meta World War. Do you think I like what they've done this offseason? I understand why they brought World Peace back. Can't live without it. He's going to mentor some of these younger guys on what not to do as a professional. I kind of like this team right now. I think they're going to be a lot of fun to watch. It should be interesting how Kobe, coexists with these young guys, how he treats them. Do you see this team as, I kind of see them as a 9 or 10 seed in the West, but I see them making significant improvements. I think Hibbert gets a lot more guff than he deserves because of his contract. but he's very good defensively. He's one of the best at the rim at going up and not getting a foul. What do you like from the Lakers right now, or do you like anything from them?
The one thing that stands out to me, which I know people always point at Kobe Bryant, but they really have, or at least it seems like, have made like a concerted effort to go for some, like younger, high upside players. Like having D'Angelo Russell, Julius Randle as like two building blocks with Jordan Clarkson, I think that's a position a lot of teams would like to be in. And then like you add in someone like Larry Nance that they got this year also. I think that their building blocks are really nice. So I think it's nice that they could kind of, they have veterans this year. Like they have Kobe Bryant around still. They signed Brandon Bass. They have Roy Hibbert. Kind of to like, I guess, teach these guys how to be NBA players, like you said, first, and then see what they could do afterwards. And obviously, they're nowhere close to contending in, the loaded Western Conference, but I don't see why they can't be better than a team, like the Nuggets and move up 3 spots in the Western Conference, like you said, or even be better than someone like the Suns this year, who I think lost a lot more than they gained. And, just having Kobe Bryant back on the court is going to be a huge help for them also.
I'd kind of like to see them make the playoffs, just because, for the simple fact of, I was talking about this last year, how I would have liked to seen Kobe Bryant, go to a Pelicans or somebody like that and do what Paul Pierce did with the Wizards last year, where, late in the game, not do much, but, be that late game assassin that a young team needs to finish off games for them. Actually, I kind of feel like Kobe could do that with this team. I think it'll be fun to watch as long as he stays healthy, which is a big if right now. I'd kind of like to see him make the playoffs just for that simple fact of seeing Kobe in the playoffs with a young team. Maybe lose a series 4-2 or something like that, but have him come up clutch in one of those 2 games.
It would be obviously definitely nice to see, since Kobe Bryant's one of the best players that I've ever seen play, but I just don't know if his ego will allow him to do that. Because even last year, obviously, he was hobbled multiple times. He still took over 20 shots per game, which I'm not sure is a winning formula for the Lakers at this point in time. But, I mean, hope maybe, I know he was gunning for some, records and stuff last year, so maybe he'll come into this season a little more subdued with how much he shoots. But, I mean, as long as he's on the court, I can't see him really changing his attitude or how he goes about his business. But hopefully they could come to some healthy medium. So, like you said, because it would be cool to see him, lead a young team into a playoff and try to, knock someone off in the first round.
Well, Kenneth, before we get out of here, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, all that good stuff?
Yeah, on Twitter you can find my personal page at Teepster725, TEAPESTER725, and then we have the Twitter page for the website, Empire Writes Back also, and then there's a Facebook page where you can see all the updates and all the articles we post also.
Awesome, Kenneth. Well, I appreciate you coming on tonight. Always a pleasure talking to you, and we'll do this again soon. And
thanks for having me. I always enjoy coming on.
Yeah, no problem. And that'll do it for this edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. We'll see you next Sunday. And you can catch me on the Box Seats Tuesday night with Alex B. Smith and the Johnny Bobo Show on Thursday night with John Malortis. You're on LateNightSportsRadio.com.